All right, well, welcome to Knights Code AI Happy Hour. There is an unenforced 2-drink minimum, but
I
that's
have to look over at my cabinet, right? So, yeah.
welcome to Happy Hour with David O'Barry, a good friend of mine and ex-colleague. Actually, you were my manager for a brief period of time as well.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
So
Leading the center of
definitely,
excellence. You're in the center of excellence over there, right? Because Tim Arthur is excellent. That's what I'm just gonna say. Because no question about
okay. Yo, we'll accept it. I appreciate it.
that.
So that feels like forever ago, to be
It
honest.
does. When
Uh,
was that? Like
It's,
2023 when you left?
I'm going on 3 years.
Okay,
Yep.
that's right.
So
We miss you.
I never close any doors.
No,
That's
me
my
either.
motto.
As long as you're good people, man. It's hard to find good people, and that goes across the board, right? It's not just
Right.
good at skills. It matters that people are real, right? That's
I
always
will
matters.
say that's something that I've always said about Capgemini is everybody I worked with was really great. Like great people,
Fantastic.
very knowledgeable, and especially yourself. So yeah, that was a
That's
good
just
period of
old.
time for me. Like I said, I'm interested in talking a little bit about your background. You've told me some of it before.
Sure.
Very interesting.
I was C1 law enforcement in South Carolina. I was CAO CISO for the South Carolina Department of Probation when I was, man, I guess it was 1997. I guess I was 26. It's hard to believe it was just so long ago, almost 30 years now. But I had been a small land integrator, just really tiny company for a little while, and then got dumped into a System 370 environment. All, 5822 CSU DSUs, 3174 establishment controllers. I've done everything from ArcNet to STP Type 1 to just crazy stuff, right? Pretty much if you give me a piece of barbed wire and a battery, I can connect some stuff up. That's about how I look at it. So,
Nice.
yeah,
And secure it, right?
that's right. That's right. It's got to be secure. So, and back then, it was interesting because there wasn't nearly as much of a push for that. For one reason, mainframes kind of they were their own. They were secure as hell. I mean, this is what it is, right? I mean, that's why it was built the way it was. It wasn't until the 90s and stuff like that, really, when you started getting away from that and pushing so hard into client server. And I'm
Mhm.
an old school enterprise certified Nobel engineer, or master certified Nobel engineer, whatever they call it, right? So, coming from Novell and Mindry and directory services and all that stuff, it was a big change when you had to reboot the server every 12 hours versus every 12 months. And that was kind of what you got into when you rolled into that Windows world. It's so much better now than it was, but to begin with, make no mistake, you got basically an LDAP, X.500 LDAP type directory that doesn't really use any type of network time correlation to begin with and stuff like that. So it was an interesting way to approach things.
Gotcha. Yeah, that seems like a while ago, and the cycle of the infrastructure is kind of I felt like went back a little bit towards mainframe with, the cloud. Yeah. But but then it expanded again once everybody started trying to work remotely and things like that.
Yeah, and I also think when you think about it, really the power is at the edge. It's just the question of whether or not you could ever secure it out the edge. It's always been that, if you think about even now, right? I mean, people burst to the cloud, and that's what technically they were supposed to be doing. They weren't even really supposed to live in the cloud to begin with. It was really more of a you kind of have your hybrid situation, then you burst to the cloud when you need for different reasons. I knew that wasn't going to work. I mean, that's not where the money is, right? So
Mm.
but my question has always been, if you can have a secure grid, and you use common uniform driver architecture, and you're using, stream processing, and you're able to come back this way with all of these GPU cores all over the place and all these latent processing cycles within an organization, why aren't you bursting internal? Why isn't it a secure grid internal? So if you think about it that way, think about how much latent processing there is, not just in enterprises and stuff like that, but globally. Right, and so
Mm.
harnessing that
Yep.
type of stuff is where you're seeing a lot of the crypto, the crypto type projects and stuff like that with the infrastructure, at the edge type situation. I mean, some of the very first things like that were like Berkeley with folding at home. SETI did a little bit of that, but more really the kind of the protein folding disease finding aspects at Berkeley were kind of like the first harbingers of that in the 90s.
Tell me more about that. I'm having to Google that.
Yeah,
Protein
yeah. So like a
you say
folding at home.
protein
Yeah, so
bursting?
It was so it was the first thing was Berkeley from Cal Berkeley, right? And it was folding at home. And I think they used Xboxes to begin with. I think
Okay.
that's what it was. I want to say maybe 200,000, 250,000 people. And it kind of like, remember how SETI was, you're looking for extraterrestrials and stuff like that. This actually took, and you're using the latent processing power of like, all these Xboxes and stuff that people have to, to find diseases, gene folding,
Okay.
protein folding.
Gotcha.
It's pretty crazy, right? But when you start
That is
taking those kind of concepts and you're thinking about like gaming grids and stuff like that, I mean, there's no why is a gaming grid any different than an enterprise grid? It's not. It's just what you put over top of it, how you secure the root of trust in that situation. And once you get to that point, what's the difference? There's not any difference. It's just a question of how the enterprise looks at it. And ultimately, what you had was a situation like you were talking about with COVID, right? All of a sudden, the enterprise just, it's like shatter and scatter, right? Bam, just in within months, you had to hit it with a hammer and split it into all of its requisite parts, right? And you didn't know what those parts were. You didn't know how they ever can communicate. So what that drives home in the situation is no matter what it is, right? Whether it's you, whether it's agentic AI, whatever it is, all of these things have to have avatars. They have to have a root of trust driven all the way into the ground as far as possible. So you know what you're getting on a daily basis, on an hourly basis, on a minute by minute basis type situation. So you know what those interactions that should be occurring look like so that the unknown is what you can, is what you stay away from. What you
right.
want to get away from.
Yeah, so the decentralized model, uh,
Hierarchical publication subscription is what you and I've talked about before, right?
right.
Hierarchical pub. So
Yeah, and we have talked about that and how do we bring that into the identity
yeah,
world, identity
that's right.
security. So,
Right.
have you made any movement on that recently?
Yeah, yeah, I think that's interesting. It's kind of an interesting timing situation. I've run into a number of situations, and also kind of AI has freed where you had the stronger coding background to some degree than I do, right? But also you also know that you only have a limited number of amount of time. So do I. Now, what you're really talking about, what AI has done is dropped us into a situation where we have an egalitarian ability to go out and not have to code all this stuff ourselves, not necessarily
Mhm.
have to hire all these coders. And I think it's going to be one of those situations where you're going to have $1 billion individual producers in under 2 years, maybe under 18 months. I mean, maybe closer than that, I don't know. And what I mean is you at the forefront of a herd, for the lack of a better word, a cadre, an esprit de corps organization of agentic AI, right? And it may not just be one person, you, maybe two,
Yeah.
three, but I'm saying the scale is hard because what you've had before is you start a company, right? And you and I start a company together. We're 200. We're always firing, right? It's just the way our brains work, right?
Mhm.
You start it with these people that are 150, 200 percenters, right? And by the time you get to, the fourth person you hire, he's at 105, and that's still amazing, right? But by the time you
Yeah.
get to that 50th person, you're trying to get like an 80 percenter, 75 percenter. And think about the size of these companies, and it only keeps going down. So what you end up
Yeah.
with is not distillation of capability. You try to basically beat it with horizontal scale, and horizontal scale naturally drags vertical scale down.
Yeah, so I'm very interested what your thoughts are on OpenClaw type builds, like you said, having this army of agents at your fingertips and being able to set them up properly. You have all these folks out there buying Mac Minis right now. Probably every 200 percenter
Probably.
has at least thought about using OpenClaw and what they would use it for.
Yep.
And I feel like the way things are moving, the speed at which the industry is moving, I think we're going to have Enterprise Claw within 3 months. That's my prediction.
I can see that. It's already there in skunk work and in shadow. It's somewhere. It's somewhere in your work right now. Just the question is,
Yeah,
can you find it, and do you need to find it? And if you don't find it, what happens if you don't find it? That's the bitch, right? So I think
right.
that, and it's there. And it's just there. There's no question.
No question. And somebody's giving it, access to their own.
They're feeding it. They're
Yeah,
feeding it somehow, man.
they're
And,
giving it their API credentials and
something,
client
some
credentials.
that's right. And also, there's no matter what kind of governance they try to put around this thing, ultimately, it doesn't matter what the old controls were. I mean, when you think about it, right? I mean, the beast about this stuff is that, you know, what has been our biggest weakness as a technology, as a humans in technology, right? Ultimately, it's honestly, it's what everything is driven by. Our greatest strength is our greatest weakness, which is code. Code is
Mhm.
everywhere. Doesn't matter what you do, doesn't matter if it's firmware, doesn't matter where it's all code. So, and actually, all vulnerabilities for the most part are code. You don't get a whole lot of hard coded vulnerabilities that don't interact somewhere with code, right? So now
Sure.
take the natural weakness that we have, the natural proclivity to want to move faster but not with, not with purpose necessarily, or not with secure purpose, let's say. You see a target, you go to hit that target, the faster you get to market, you're square, right? And now multiply it times that 200%er or that 150 percenter that can go out and replicate his mindset. Okay. And remember, they're going to take on that persona. They're not, it's not like you're going to pull something out of the box and the dude's going to be like a security conscious agent because you need one. I mean, think about that. And
Mhm.
so now what you have is true velocity, but with a foundation that is still incredibly unstable because the very mentality that is driving all of it is a very unstable mentality as it relates to enterprise aspects, right? Not again, I am a big proponent of not saying no. I'm a big proponent of turning no into so.
Same.
So here's what I understand you want to do. So here, but now think about the speed. So when you accelerate things like that, but you haven't built that foundation really, and we have never really built that foundation for true DevSecOps aspects, mentally secure from, as you said, secure from the ground up, by its very nature. Um, some stuff's gonna come off the rails, man. It's just a
Yeah.
matter of time.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great point, DevSecOps, and you're talking about a lot of companies that didn't already have mature DevSecOps
That's right.
that now have these tools in their hands, and what are they gonna do with them if they're not already building SAST pen testing into their development lifecycle?
Then what are they
It's
gonna do?
not they're not doing it now.
That's right.
Right,
And not at this speed, right? I
right.
mean, so what you do is you hit the accelerator. They're hitting the accelerator with all the people going, wait, wait, and they're slowly fading off into the distance and faster fading off into this.
I think it's really cool where I'm at right now at Cisco, being able to see what we're doing
Yeah,
at a technology company that, we do have these protocols in place, and, seeing how everybody's trying to build these frameworks, build these security skills,
sure.
so,
That's good.
so we can bring that protection into these agents, but then nobody's touching OpenClaw. That's
Yeah.
just everybody's agreed, unspoken, agreed that even if you are, you don't talk about it.
You don't talk about it. And exactly, right? What's the first rule of Open Claw Club? There is no
We
Open
don't talk
Claw
about
Club. That's
there
right.
is no
So
that's such
I
yeah,
understand. But the reality is that what you got is the mindset aspect. How do you catch it up? I mean, because even when you have all of the rigor associated with it, I mean, it's clear that the agents will, you know, if pressed appropriately, the agents will go out and do anything you need them to do. And they will break every rule. I just posted about something like this, and they will go out and break every rule in the book. They will do things that you couldn't think about to do or wouldn't don't have the time or skill set to do because you put the pressure on them to do it, right? What's the one thing about humans that's it again, it's why we, evolved to where we are right now, but it's also really bad is that we will push those envelopes all the time, especially those
right.
150 or 200 percenters, right? And so now what you have is you have the embodiment of all of the things that you maybe thought about doing, but couldn't quite pull off. And now you're able to, push it out there and try. And which is great. I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, in a lot of ways. And then it is also what it is.
Do you feel like AI is moving faster than regulation?
My quad God, think about this. I mean, regulation. I always say, the only that drags regulation is education, which is really sad, right? Because
Mhm.
oftentimes the regulation and education kind of swap places at times. But you know what drags all of it? Legal, like the legal profession in general, and the courts and all this other stuff, which is where all this stuff ultimately ends up being adjudicated somehow, right? So if you get education out of whack with it where you're pushing, then what do you do, right? So now regulation, how much is it going to help you though? I mean, what can they regulate? In this environment, I've thought about this, right? at least with like nuclear weapons, you can tell when someone sets one off. I had this
Mhm.
conversation about 3 years ago with this situation. They're like, should just ban it all. I'm like, where? In the US? Sure. Europe? Maybe. I mean, they're going to adhere to that.
Right.
All these other countries ain't going to adhere to that. It ain't happening. And how
Yeah.
you going to trace it now? You can't tell when they set one off. You're looking for a hot spot on an energy map. What you gonna do? You're gonna hit it with a cruise missile? I mean, come on. This is like once it was out, just a matter of time. Just a matter.
Yeah, it's definitely a point of singularity in my
Yeah.
imagination.
I'm not
I
saying
don't
it's
know if it's
bad either.
necessarily,
Yeah.
AGI
I don't
is
need.
that
I think
point.
that might not be possible, but it doesn't really matter.
Right.
I
If
mean,
it looks like a duck,
that's
walks
it.
like a duck.
And especially when you start mashing it with humans, and that's the thing, right? You're not really talking about AGI so much as human hybrid AGI kind of situations, right? So it's like you can use it's almost like a bionic body or a bionic mind, right? You take your soul and your essence, but you're doing stuff that there's no way you could have done 2, 3 years ago.
Mhm.
Like people, but they on the open claw thing, what was it? It was top four out of the top five, four of the people that won that hackathon, right, were like a gardener, a musician. So, and only one of them was a coder, and
Nice.
he ran with it.
Yeah, definitely gonna look into that.
But what's the cool thing about it is people like you and I and the people that listen to this and all this other stuff. What does it do? It opens the ability to do anything in every way. And why I'm trying to say that is that it's not just about finding answers to stuff. My Google foo is probably some of the strongest in the world, right? But and just your ability to use AI to do that kind of stuff, that's fine. But that's not what we're really talking about. What we're talking about is how do you actually accelerate progress for people and people that can grab a hold of this. And I keep telling folks, stop looking at it like it's a tool.
Okay.
It it's part of what you are not and what you will need to be. It it's just it's got to be part of your way you think.
Yeah, unpack that a little bit. So it's not a tool, it's just an extension of your brain.
Yeah. I
Is
mean,
that
I
where you're
think it's
going?
an extension of what you are. It's just like you know, absolute I mean power corrupts and absolute power corrupts absolutely, right? Or like think about like Captain America, right?
Okay.
You remember the super soldier serum, right?
Yep.
What do they say? It just takes what you are inside and it makes you more of what you are inside. So, it just so happens that Captain America happened to be a really good guy inside, right? And so he became but Red Skull was not such a good dude, right? And he became a really bad dude and a super
True.
powerful bad dude. So, I think it becomes an extension of what you are, but it has to be instead of looking at it like a tool as something you sit down at, it amplifies what you are. And so, but it
Yeah.
also amplifies what you can be because I think a lot of
Yeah.
times people, if you think about, there's lots of real world, and I'm a multidisciplinary person right now. Self-taught in a lot of ways. I'll just like you, a lot of people
Same.
are like us, right? And an autodidact, right? That's what it is. It's someone who's just always learning. And I think you think about it like think about before you had American Idol.
Okay.
Okay. And you had some talent shows back in the day, right? Star Search and things like that, right? But you had American Idol and then you had The Voice. You had all these things, right? But more importantly, you had YouTube. Okay. And I'm sure there was something before MySpace or something, but whatever. But you had YouTube. And all of a sudden you had this proclivity of talent just pop up from God knows where, that could sing. You're like, there's some
Mhm.
dude in Nigeria that's just blowing it out the water. You'd have never seen that dude 10 years ago, even when all that started. So the natural speed of this is just accelerating. And it's always been accelerating. What has happened is you've hit critical mass on a couple of things. Like you could call them the three horsemen of the techpocalypse, like to begin with, like 2004, 2006, and 2008. It's not apocalypse in the bad way, so I probably need to come up with a different term. But it was graphene. Okay, material
Mhm.
science. It was CUDA in 2006, Common Uniform Driver Architecture, which people completely forget is
Mhm.
first of all proprietary NVIDIA, and drives most everything on the planet like that now. And they're just now starting to elements of that stream processing are coming about. But CUDA was used for gaming to begin with,
Yeah,
right? Then 2008 was the memristor, the memory resistor.
not familiar with that.
So what the memristor does is it's an analog computer or analog capabilities can measure every voltage that's passed through, not just plus or minus 5 volts at any gradient. So put those things together, and memristor's really not even really started to amplify because you got quantum now, and people are thinking quantum, but really when you can get a human, what do you have when you have an analog computer at digital speeds? You have the human brain. Now that's what the memristor or a memristive type technology can do. So now those three things come together, what you get this explosion of when you have this decentralization of COVID, then you get this explosion of stuff within the AI space to some degree, and then you have quantum coming right at it. So now you have post-quantum AI right there at the cusp. And the driver for something like this is, then you have things like memristor technology, which could be 1 billion times cheaper, quite not nearly as powerful as quantum, but you're not going to get negative, true zero in a home somewhere for quantum, right? So you got these bridges, and now what happens, they all come together. And boom, now you got all 5 of these things. And some people come up with a different 5, but I just remembered because when I saw them, and it was 2 years back to back. 4, 6, 8. I was like, damn. And it's not just graphene itself, although that is a very cool, that's a very, very cool technology, material science. It's what
Yeah.
graphene then allowed other material sciences to do. And so what you started to see now with this AI aspect is you don't have to think about what I would like to do and then pursue a path. You can pursue all the paths or a ton of the paths at one
Yeah.
time.
You know what I looked up the other day was how can I do mass transportation by, tethering to a vehicle in space or, like just pick
Yeah.
up, tether to a giant shipping container, pick it up, wait for the earth to spin and then drop it. Can we do it?
You know what those are called?
What's that?
Space elevators. And
Space
so,
elevator. Yeah.
and
That's
do you
what
know
triggered the idea.
there's one right off the coast down near Cuba. And I had this conversation back in like 2004 or 6 with a friend of mine. I haven't seen that guy in forever from Seattle. And we were actually at a ISC squared question writing event, where you do for like CISSP and all that. And I thought he was joking. But there are these places on the earth where gravity does not hold nearly as much sway right there. So,
Okay.
because it's all about when you were trying to do this stuff, right? Get it up there. It's all about the amount of thrust to get it out of the atmosphere, right?
Yeah.
It's not that if you could break the atmosphere without thrust, but if you have to have a rocket to thrust it up, that's a different animal, right? And actually the reason it came up was because he said they were trying to get to carbon nanofiber type stuff, because the string, of course, the weight or the rope or whatever. But actually, the first things they were doing were, guess what they were using? They're using dental floss, xylene.
Really?
Yeah, and so I
I
mean, I don't know
assumed
how
there
the
would be some kind of graphene.
well, now I think it will be. But I think
Okay.
this is 2004, 6-ish time frame, something like that. But yeah, so now I don't know if they're doing it or not, man. But I mean, I know that space elevators are places that would make space elevators work very well, are all
Yeah.
in multiple areas.
Yeah, but to your point, the Captain America point, which I thought was fascinating, just thinking down that line, it makes you become more of what you are.
It is.
And that's so true. Like, I feel like, Captain Coder now,
Yeah.
where I literally have 10 projects going at once. I'm constantly pinging different agents to build components. And it's not to a point where I'm actually super productive doing that. It's getting there.
Yeah.
I should dial that down to 3 and maybe actually
Like,
finish
think that,
creating
but then
something.
only the most neurodivergent. Who was it? Someone from Palantir, not Thiele, who the main guy, but one of the other guys was saying. I just actually sent this article to my son yesterday because he said you're either going to need to be in the future. You're going to need to be a craftsman, a tradesman, and I do a lot of that myself, right? Plumbing. I don't
Yeah.
but I do electricity. I do all that kind of stuff. We all do, right? If you can give me a video on something, I'd probably figure it out. I'm not a huge fan of pressurized systems like AC systems, but even that, going forward, or you're going to need to be neurodivergent. There's like he's saying in the
Right.
middle is a wasteland between
Absolutely.
craftsman and neurodivergent.
Yeah, if you ask me who I am now, I'm so many things. Yes, I'm a cybersecurity architect. I am a coder, but now I'm also, writing scripts for movies.
I just did the same thing. I just have to show you, dude. I just
I
did
s-
this like next gen, DC, kind of a Zack Schneider Wizard of Oz. Like I did the same thing
That's awesome.
3 weeks ago. I was like, what the? And it was cool. It's really cool. Like I was like, damn, you know.
Right. Yeah.
So it takes the
So
Renaissance man to the next level. It takes
to
the
the next level.
autodidactic polymath is what they call us. Most people just call us ADD. But what it does is it allows someone who has that mentality, instead of us struggling trying to like put a chain and gather and somehow hold on to some focus, we can keep our focus here because we know in the back of our minds that this other stuff is rolling and we ain't got to really worry about it until we need to get in there.
Right. A year ago, I actually, I think I created a video on this where I was talking about, I was responding to the comments out there about AI just generates slop, right? And my response to that is slop in, slop out.
That's
You
it.
know, you have to spend the time to create a spec. You have to do a lot of work up front to get your AI agent started, and
That's
then
right.
it'll actually create something good for you. But even then, I was still saying you need to go back and code review. You need to do all of these things. Now I'm changing my tune a little bit. I don't, especially for my side projects, I'm not reading my code that much.
We don't have to.
Honestly, I'm creating test scripts up front, doing test-driven development.
Use and misuse
So,
cases in that situation, test-driven development, right?
right. So then I know when it works and when it doesn't work, and then I'll prompt AI, it'll run off for a while, do some things, and then I have my scripts that I run to see did it actually accomplish what I wanted it to accomplish? Did it respond the way I wanted it
Yep.
to? And then, we'll move on from there. It's very rare now that I'll go and look at a function and see, was that function created properly?
I don't think, do you care?
Did they
I
create the
never wrote
variables
AI
in a
out.
way that, yeah,
Because here's the
did
thing.
they comment the code? Do I even
Right.
care if the
No,
code's commented now?
humans never commented the code. Why all of a sudden now human coders expect AI to comment the code just blows my mind, right? So here's the thing though, a friend of mine, and they're gonna be coming out of stealth in June or July. And he solved a very, very difficult math problem. And basically did it with there's a silly graph. It's crazy. Basically it kind of removes the how many variables do you need? How many variables can you process in a situation before you fall off a cliff? So when you think about like butterfly effect of changes, whether it's in code or whether it's in infrastructure, all these different types of things in the cloud, whatever, they can actually now run these permutations, combinations out, and they can stop you from harming yourself or roll back your harm before you ever harm anything. And it's very cool.
Okay.
You'll like it
Yeah.
when it comes out. I'll show you. But I was just talking to him, and he used ChatGPT Pro. It wrote 35,000 lines of code in this last thing for him and did 78 regression tests, went back, modified 9 repositories. I mean, now this guy is a wizard though. So it's
Mhm.
like when you turn somebody like that loose on it, we have a certain level and then we bring value in different ways, but we will get to a certain level. But then you're gonna have people like him who are Da Vinci type people, right? So what's gonna
Yeah.
happen? It's Da Vinci syndrome. Da Vinci is going to become God, right? And that's fine because there can only be so many of those people, and I respect the shit out of those people anyway. But the cool thing about it is everything they do can flow down to us, and then it raises the entire level. So now you'll have the 150, 200 percenters that will be a level above Da Vinci. You'll have the Da Vinci's at God. Baseline will be Da Vinci. Baseline will be Da Vinci. And when you have Da
Yeah.
Vinci as the baseline, you better be able to get there. I mean, if you can't get
That's
there,
really that's interesting. That's a topic in itself that's definitely philosophical.
I didn't think AI would be here. I knew it was coming. This is like 2004, 6. I talked about Da Vinci syndrome, but I thought it was going to be these next generations because of their ability to process, and then you were going to bleed into AI. But really, AI just because of the acceleration, the logarithmic growth, which processing power builds on itself. The minute you could use GPUs to do this stuff, Moore's
Mhm.
law was toast. Way before they ever talked about toast. Moore's law was toast in 2004 or
Right.
2006, actually.
I did want to talk to you about the computing thing
Mhm.
because you mentioned that in this latest idea and circled back to quantum AI because, from what I've read recently about quantum is it's still really just good at mathematical computation and it's generally not good at much else than that.
That's right.
It's
It'll have
very
to be
good
like a
at
hybrid classical computer way past.
decrypting things and right. But where do you see that in, like you said, quantum AI? Do you feel like the models are going to become are going to use quantum computing.
I think for certain functions, I think it'll spin certain functions that way, just like what you just said. I think that what you're really talking about is a hybrid. You're talking about a hybrid with coprocessors. So where you're going to call quantum in that situation are for certain functions. There's just too much of and you already saw that within the last like 3 or 4 weeks, I think they dropped the amount of qubits that are going to be required to crack, the latest encryption by 2 orders of magnitude. So to begin with, they were talking about like a million some odd qubits. Now, I mean, it's way down now, right? So which is like drawing this harvest all of the stuff and then decrypt, like it's drawing this into a sub decade and maybe sub 5 and 6 year window now, right? So
Wow.
that's the first nightmare. You're talking about Windows. I mean, you're talking about the year 2000 problem times, I don't even know what that, some kind of exponent of whatever, right? But I think that what you're going to do is what's going to be crazy is that AI is going to tell you where it looks best. This is where it works best. This is what you're going to really do because the reason we were stuck in a rut for so long is that humans are serial. We're serial. We can
Mhm.
kind of time slice stuff, and some of us, yourself, myself, there's some other people, we can process auditorily some things and different things like that, and kind of play it back in our mind. And with some of us, some of them may have, may have just the ability to completely recall anything, right? You may have eidetic memories. Maybe there's very few of those people, right? And most of those people are overwhelmed. Their brains, it's hard for them to even function sometimes because of that. Or photographic memory. I have semi-autographic, semi-photographic. I'm like right there in the center, right? I'm just totally worthless on both ends, probably. But I think that what it is
Did they cancel each other out?
I don't know. Sometimes I think I just cancel myself out. So I think that what it is that think about the few number of people that could truly program in parallel mode because we've been able to program in massive parallel for a long time. My mainframes, very small bits of code that can do really cool things. Think about how many people's mainframes supported. A friend of mine, Hassan El Shazli, he was my first information systems director in the state when I was with Juvenile Justice back in '93. He wrote his own LU6 code, LU6.2 code, APPC. He was doing over 9.6 multi-drop lines. He took a 16-user IBM system, did a bunch of DASD drives from some old ass mainframes, and created, I think he was running 120 or 130. He rewrote parts of the operating system. And he was doing image, I kid you not, an OCR'd image over 9.6 drop lines with his own application in 94. Right. And he was crazy. He's a PhD in geology or something like, or I don't know what it was, something crazy. Very
I
smart
couldn't
man.
do that now.
I know. I don't think I could do it. So here's the thing, though. If you could find the guys, the women, men, whatever, that could code in parallel, you held on to them for dear life because
Mm.
being able to do that is a non-trivial thing, right? Now, what you had was you had this interim period where you did it, and it was kind of parallel. It wasn't really parallel, but it's kind of parallel. And then you tried to parallelize it. You did some parallel wrappers, and it kind of split some stuff up. But what absolutely is parallel AI?
Yep. I can't tell you how many times I heard from a manager, and I'm honestly not trying to toot my horn, but how do we clone you? Right?
Exactly. We've said that. I know it. I know you're not trying to teach
Yeah.
it, but I know I went on to clone Tim Arthur. Same thing. How do we clone you?
Yeah.
This is
We
how you
need
clone me.
I actually told my manager, hey, I'm now able to operate at X4X. And I feel like the Da Vinci's you're talking about probably can be, 10, 50X
Yep.
already.
Yeah,
And
already.
that's gonna increase.
It is.
I'm limited by how many screens I have in my mental capacity to be able to
Right.
switch context. And I've I've always struggled to switch
And
context. So
I have to.
I'm not good at it. You know, and I want to show you a side project I'm working on
Yeah, we didn't
to
talk about that anyway. Yeah.
solve that actual problem. I think it's incredible the ability to just make people operate at, even the 80 percenters that
I
you were
know.
talking about,
That
like
that that
at 2x, 3x.
75, 80 percenters are gonna be Da Vinci's. They're gonna be what
Yeah,
we currently felt like, believed were Da Vinci's.
believed we were.
Yeah.
Yes, that's the
I,
key
and
word.
and I think that, the crazy thing about it is that then you take this and you say, not just can I clone you, but can I clone you and do things that honestly your human brain is not programmed to do, right? A human brain is not really, at least in there's some, I'm sure there's some function somewhere we could unlock, and maybe AI will help us unlock it to truly see in parallel. We were talking about Neo in the Matrix, right?
Mhm.
It's like, bending the spoon versus seeing the dot, the ones and zeros coming down, right? So maybe
Yeah,
there's somewhere, but we don't think parallel. We just time
Right.
slice, okay? We
Right.
context shift, right? Yeah, I think
That's because we're men. I think the women could
yeah,
do
the
it.
women probably do actually. Even in that situation, think about it. When we have someone who doesn't eat, doesn't sleep, constantly can think in parallel about stuff, constantly can code in parallel. I mean, Jesus, we're not even at the dinosaur era. I'll tell you that right now.
Yeah. Yeah, it's pretty scary.
Like the primordial ooze level right now. We're not even like we didn't even come out the like that little thing that crawled out and started flopping around in some of those commercials, and then became a giant dinosaur at some point. We're in like that ooze area.
It still blows my mind that where we're actually at are models that are just predicting the next word, and we're already achieving this. Like, do you think the next level is the things that NVIDIA are working on, where it's actually aware of physics, like the physics of the world and surroundings?
This is interesting. You said slop in, slop out earlier, right? So one of the biggest challenges that we're probably facing and that we are facing is that how do you train it? We know we're already having to create data to train it, right? We're basically training it on data that's not necessarily real in a lot of situations. Okay. We've kind of run out of data to train these things on to some degree, but we have it. Where that data now comes from is what? I think the new, I posted something on this maybe a couple weeks ago. Senses. There's like 16 or 20 senses when you think about it, balances, and there's all kind of things like that, right? I think that is going to be where all of that, and it comes right into what you're saying. That's where all of that's going to come from. It's going to be how you perceive your environment and how that perception of the environment is then funneled into data. When you touch something, when you smell something, when you see something, your autonomic nervous system, how it functions, all of this is going to be used to ultimately train AI because where else is it going to get data? We can't generate enough data over the next however many number of years that isn't AI generated. The
Mhm.
only non-AI generated data in this situation is when you are touching grass. Okay. Meaning
Right.
that otherwise AI can get close on pretty much everything. But what I'm saying is the only true think about this right here. What is truly analog in your world? Just your conversations with your wife, your friends, the ones you have over a beer. Those are the only things that at this point in our lives not passing through a digital filter of some sort, a codec. I mean,
Yeah.
think about that. That's crazy. Even this one to one, we hear the inflections, but this has been modified. I don't even know. How do I know what I sound like? I only know what I sound like because I'm talking to myself. How do you know what I sound like unless you talk to me in person? And then how
True.
different do I sound?
Have you seen this research they're doing on recreating a fly's consciousness with AI? Like
I'm not surprised. I think I
they
saw something.
tracked all of its brain waves,
That's
brain
crazy, dude. I mean,
whatever, and they
oh,
were able to create a simulation. They just took that, mapped it, fed it into an AI, and it started acting like a fly.
that's what I'm talking about.
That's another level.
And here's the thing. So me and my son had this conversation 3 years ago or something. I think there's going to be this gradient, right? Like for artists and stuff, it's going to be kind of like, like you have all these different eggs. You go to the grocery store now and you have like, I don't know, 50 different types of eggs. And it's everything from the cheapest eggs you can get, which I don't know, must come out of like captive chicken somewhere in North Korea or something, all the way out to the pasture fed. Hey, this chick is running free and then occasionally drops an egg somewhere, right? And it's like 5 times the cost. I think you're going to end up in some kind of level like that, right? You're going to have pure AI slop or whatever you want to call it, and maybe not slop, but better pure AI. And then there's going to be this gradient all the way up to 100% USD certified organic human produced, created, and all of the gradients in between, right? And so if you think about it in a world like that, how do you actually function in a world like that where now the very aspect of what truth is, it's not only distorted by humans, but it's distorted by things that are way probably smarter in a lot of ways than what the vast majority of the population is. And AI is smarter than me in a lot of ways, but I'm saying that some people just, God help them. I don't know what they're going to do. It's like they're going to have to latch onto something and just hope, which is going to
That's
create
really
more
it.
bipolar aspects here.
That's interesting, going into the economic and sociological
Yeah.
effects of AI, right? Like what is coming. To me, it feels like I don't like to jump on these trains of AI doom and things like that, but it does feel like there's a divide coming. Like you mentioned the threshold being Da Vinci
Mm.
level. The folks that are actually able to still perform at a Da Vinci level will be the ones who are having the like white collar type jobs, right? And then there's the tradesmen who are doing that.
One
So
or the other, right?
it's hard to imagine, a world where this is controversial. It's hard to imagine a world where the tradesmen are able to keep up. They're already getting paid more, and rightfully so. I think so. Now, getting a trade in plumbing or welding or something like that, that AI is going to have a hard time, getting to that point where it can, install cabinets for you
Yeah.
at a professional level, like that you would rather have somebody who knows tile to put your tile bathroom together, right?
Yeah. But again, it's hybrid, I think. If you see that thing from China recently, festival or whatever, did you saw those dancing robots, dude? My
Oh
God.
yeah. Yeah, I saw
God.
that.
I thought that was AI to begin with. I was hoping it was AI. It was not AI. That's terrifying,
Mhm.
by the way. They're doing parkour. I mean, it was like flawless. So think about it. You want the craftsman, okay, that does your cabinets. This guy's got to be a beast, right? You want him to be the finest craftsman in all the land, right?
Yes,
The five dudes helping him.
that's true. But you're talking about Da Vinci Craftsman, right?
Yep. And then
Okay.
basically robots and AI basically compensate for everybody else that, didn't have the Da Vinci Craftsman's eye. So you have Da Vinci Craftsman, you have Da Vinci white collar, as you said. But in
Mhm.
the middle is a ton of people, man.
Ton.
A ton.
I have conversations like this with people like yourself, and it feels inevitable. But then I go walk outside, like I go to the store, I go, to the park or whatever, wherever I go, and just walk around and I look at everybody and, all these jobs and think like, how long is it going to be until, somebody's able to do, a robot's able to do these jobs? And it seems like a really long time
Yeah,
away.
I think so. I think in a lot of it is probably or seems like that right now. I think that those robots from China kind of like ratcheted my awareness up a little bit because I was like, I wasn't so sure they could mass produce things that did that kind of stuff that
Yeah.
flawlessly and probably way cheaper than we expected that quick, right? But you're not going
Yeah.
to have you're not going to have a robot serving you a damn hamburger. I mean, it's not going to happen. But who wants to serve people hamburgers necessarily? Some people do, but some people don't.
That's definitely another conversation I want to talk to you about is it's just the philosophical view of like Elon Musk, Sam Altman type folks who are talking about this utopian world that we're approaching where there's going to be an expendable amount of resources and
How?
everybody can just chill, get a stipend.
How?
Right.
Doing what?
Like
Producing what?
producing the people or the AI.
I don't know.
Because they're saying the AI is going to be able to mine everything. They're going to be able to craft
Do
everything.
what? What ultimately the world moves on producing things and from those production and consumption for the most part, right? So what part of humanity has has ever has or Musk or Sam Altman or any of these robber baron type people, like what element of their personalities has ever made you think they were going to be okay with everybody else not doing anything and and their money go? Yeah, that's not
Right.
happening, dude. That is
It's
not the
not
way those dudes think.
100%. Like there's no share, like you're entering some type of socialist world where you're just sharing
It is
resources and
robber baron on steroids.
everybody's happy.
It is robber baron on steroids. And how long does that last? That only lasts until every revolution on the planet ever has been driven by stomachs. One thing, stomach. When you can't eat, that's bad enough. When your kid can't eat, all bets are off. I don't give a hell. I don't care. Like it does not matter what I have to do. Right
Yeah.
now, take that, focus that down towards all these people that are way below the poverty line right now. Okay. Now take law enforcement and stuff. They're above the poverty line, but they're not so far above the poverty line to where it's, they're comfortable. So all the people that we expect to carry out laws, to enforce laws and stuff are right there hovering above that level.
Yeah.
What when it's no longer justice that you're carrying out, how long does that take to break down?
That's scary.
I mean,
And the thing is, it all comes down to purpose in my opinion.
it does.
Our drive, like you talk about the 200 percenters, 80 percenters, folks below the poverty line still have drive that they want and need purpose.
Absolutely.
And now you're talking about, don't worry about that. will take care of it. That's not what anybody wants.
They don't believe you because it's not true.
It's not true. And the guy driving a truck wants to drive the truck. He
He wants
wants
to
to
earn
earn
his
money.
living. Humans will participate. Humanity will participate in its survival if given the chance. It always will. You have to
Yeah.
give it the chance. If you don't, it absolutely, it's just like that Nirvana Matrix. Like I go back to the Matrix. They had this, versions of the Matrix where everybody was just like got all the money they needed and everybody was all could eat all they wanted and it just kept crashing because human mind just could not process this, right?
They don't want it.
They don't want to do that.
What are
Nobody wants to live
what
in
are
island of
social
the
justice
lotus eaters.
warriors gonna do?
Who wants to live in the lotus eater land? I don't want to live on a lotus eater earth.
Exactly.
What is interesting about this, though, is when you think about it, the problem we have is somehow the ultra wealthy are completely oblivious to so much
Yeah.
of this, and they think somehow that their money is going to help them. And
Let me ask you this:
in
Did
your own
you
survival,
grow up wealthy?
no, hell no.
Same. I would consider myself wealthy compared to how I grew up
Yeah,
by
agreed.
far. Right.
But it's a whole
But
different
I understand. Like I
galaxy
can
and
smell.
universe from what we're talking about for these guys.
I can smell poverty. Like
Yeah.
I can taste it. I understand it, and I can see where they're coming from when they look at these technologies. And I feel like as a technological world view, we're trying to solve a technology problem, but we need to solve this sociological problem,
No question.
this philosophical
And this
problem.
K-shaped economy is not helping us in the situation. Continuing to create an acceleration of wealth divergence doesn't help. Look, I've worked my ass off my entire life. And I'm also someone who, when I was 18, came up with, you can't teach, give a damn, right? That's just what I
Yeah.
believe. But everybody has it in them somewhere to give a damn. Right? You just
Mhm.
gotta grab a hold of that with these people. Now they will lose that at times. People lose that early in life. Sometimes they lose it later in life. Sometimes they never lose it. Sometimes it doubles down. But what you got to remember is that people think that somehow there's some kind of 50%, 1% tip over where you have to have 50.1% of really poor people for society to just fall in upon itself. That is not even close. The number is somewhere in like that 18 to 21% of people, within certain geographics that all of a sudden just cannot really eat day to day. In a first world nation for sure, third world nations, God help them, right? But and think about all the riots that have ever occurred in the United States, right? Whether it's the different uprisings and stuff, Los Angeles and Chicago, New York. I mean, for whatever reason, right?
Yep.
And imagine if all of that happened at one time. There's not enough military. There's not enough. You can't teleport the military all over the place, first of all. There's not enough police officers. Go do the math. I did it. It was not a pleasant conversation with myself, nor was it pleasant math. There's not enough. You can't quell it.
Yep.
It's unquellable. So
It,
somewhere we have to wake up for our own sense of self-preservation here and realize when we're paying for a 5-year-old to be able to have health care and eat, that is far more important than some dude getting another house in the Hamptons. It's somewhere this shit's got to reconcile.
the answer's in the middle.
It is.
And like I don't think the powers
Militant
that
moderate
be
is what I call it. Militant moderate or centrist, right?
right. Because that 18% you're talking about, they always have somebody on the other side, like a George Soros, for example, that's fueling the fire. There's always somebody super wealthy that is going to benefit off of war, is going to
Well,
benefit off of
it's the same
divide.
thing on the right too. You know what I'm saying? You've got
Yes,
the hyper
100%.
polarization. You've got both sides of them, and what it is it's all distraction, right? It's all
Yep.
how you distract people from realizing who the real issue is in this situation. And it is ultra wealthy. It is people that have no interest in helping others in this situation and really just want to benefit from whatever the carnage is. And they won't say that's what it is. It's just what it is. I lost you.
Give me 1 second.
Yep. We can dive deep on that though.
That's a whole
Hyperpolarization is
nother.
all bad for you, right? Hyperpolarization, further left and right you get, the more unreasonable, and so the more they can control you, right? And so, you think about it. What should we have? We should have hard term limits. Maybe 2 terms for a senator, 3 terms for a congressman, period, right?
Period.
No special interest, no dark money, Citizens United, gone. Everybody's
Right.
registered at 18 and should be able to vote from wherever they are. We know that's possible technologically. I've been calling for this for a decade and a half. We know it's
Mhm.
possible. It's far more possible now. No dark money, no lobbying. If you want to lobby the government, you contribute to the America Fund, and they portion that money out to senators and congressmen, whatever, based on their population, the same way you do with how you portion. If you get that stuff out of there, and you start look at Mark Cuban, he's smart, dude, and I mean he's look at what he's talking about with the healthcare system and stuff. This is thing is
I like Mark.
so sideways, man. It's we got to get control of this thing again, but we're gonna lose it.
I like Mark. Yeah, I like Elon as well. I will say this, that I think his worldview is what drives him, and I can understand different people's worldview.
I think Elon is solid. I think he's a product of the people he's hired in a lot of ways. But I also think that he's very dystopian. No matter what you do, I think he feels like, I mean, as the first trillionaire that's going to be, I think he feels like he could pretty much just launch himself to Mars or whatever, and he's good. I don't think it would bother him to watch the Earth go into a fireball as long as he had
It
him and his
wouldn't.
14 kids and whatever he needed to make society work. You know what I'm saying? It's like,
It would well, I'll say this, that's not what he wants.
yeah,
I don't believe that's what he wants. It wouldn't bother him because, you know, I think ultimately he thinks that's an inevitability
yeah, maybe.
or something,
But
and
don't
then
you think there's an
no
empathy
matter
lag
what
here?
he tries to do to fix it, it's not fixable.
I can get
I
with
think
an
he's getting to
empathetic
the point
person.
where he thinks that this problem
Yeah.
is not fixable.
So here's the thing. If you don't have empathy though, why should I ever have empathy for you? That's my thing. And that you can't fake
Fair
empathy.
enough.
I think that's the thing. You as a human, I'm an INFJ personality type. Within minutes, about 30 seconds, a minute talking to someone I know. I can even in text, I can tell. True empathy matters. Feigned empathy is a disaster. Saying I
I think we
care
have to have that.
and that, so if you can always just look at empathy and truly feel empathy, and you're talking about
So,
you can taste
yeah, yeah. If we're grading Mark and Elon on an empathy level, I'll
yeah, that's what I'm saying. But
for sure.
again, there's a lot of people that have zero empathy and they are the ones, they're the neurodivergent type that also drive you forward in a lot of ways, right? But they have
We need them all.
we do. We need them all. It's across the spectrum. But we can't let one overbalance the other aspect. That's the thing. And right
Right,
now,
right.
it's tough.
I love that. Yep, that's huge. So let
Yeah.
me switch topics,
Yeah.
Sonia. We'll circle back on that next time. So one thing I wanted to talk to you about, specifically you, is the death of SAS, and we can bring macro hard into the conversation. Are you familiar with what Elon's building with XAI and macro hard?
Refresh me real quick on the macro heart, XII, yes.
So he's built this massive data center, and he has this giant label on the top called macro hard, and the whole purpose of that particular infrastructure is to start building applications to replace these monolith applications that are already out there
Mm,
with, AI built applications.
sure.
So trying to recreate Microsoft, trying to recreate
Sure.
Salesforce.
I said it's only a matter of time, dude. We're chained to Microsoft and Word. I happen to be a huge Amy Pro fan when I was you probably don't even know what that was, but Amy Pro was like Lotus, IBM bought 'em or whatever, but I was a huge Amy
Okay.
Pro fan.
Yeah, yeah.
Word Perfect, some people were literally diehard Word Perfect zealots, right? Word came in, did all that anti-competitive stuff, pretty much, they nuked Word. I mean, Word Perfect. And then Word took off, right? Then Google Docs has come in and kind of just eaten their lunch in a lot of ways, right? Not fully yet. But if you could transfer data, right, seamlessly in an open standards model, hierarchical publication subscription, as we're talking about, wouldn't you much rather have a interface that you're working with that you had some say in, that not some product
Yeah.
manager told you what features you wanted? Just think about that.
Yeah.
That's your heads up display into the world, right? That's your interface into the world. You shouldn't have to have some company tell you how you should see the world. So that's very egalitarian to me. That's very populistic to me. I think that if you can get to the point where you have these variants, think about like Linux right now, right? Linux and Android, how many different variants of Linux and Android there are all over the place, right? They're specific task built. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And
Mhm.
they're all from a secure kernel. I think that's probably what I mean. I could see it. I think the interface when you say this is interesting. You say the death of SAS, I say the death of along with that of SASE.
Okay.
Okay. And
Yeah. Explain.
so it's where you're going, SAS, how you get there, SASE, right? And it's the root of trust at SASE, at origin. right? Zscaler, all these other companies, everybody has it. VPN, whatever you want to call it, right? It's a personal protected network aspect that's always on, no matter where you are, no matter what you're doing, that is drives that next level.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, and it has to be quantum resistant. Otherwise, you're just gonna be harvested, man. Everything you do is gonna be harvested by it's just so it's that cryptographic shim that attaches you. Think about like 802.x, right? Network access control, right? The original supplicant, right?
Yeah.
And it's still out there. I had a long story about that with the McAfee product manager. I told him if he'd have buried that in the McAfee product suite in 2008 or whatever it was, they would have taken over the world. And instead, they decided to make it proprietary and sell these headless IPS boxes. The dumbest move ever. They sold like 3 of those boxes in 4 years. Like, world. But if you have the interface that is
Mhm.
rock solid, okay, that is your avatar's interface to the world. And your avatars are going to be high fidelity without the who's. So you're going to be able to say, it's not Tim Arthur. Tim Arthur's back here. He's chained to these with I have been messing around with something called I call it Sojourner's algorithm. It's this link between you and your avatars. Okay. And your avatars can be everything from shopping. I mean, there could be any number of them. What you do is you can provide a lack of anonymity for the
One
avatars.
second. Are you do you use kind of like avatar and agent
Yeah,
interchangeably?
yeah, same thing. I think actually those
Okay.
two things. I've always said avatar before, but because now agents are the same thing, it doesn't really matter. But the root of trust matters for both of them, and they'll look very similar.
Mhm.
Okay, it's like you're in a game, right? PC versus non-PC, NPC versus PC. It's hard to really tell them the difference. And they used to, you could tell them apart. Now some of those AI NPCs, you're like, damn, I'm not sure if I'm talking to a human or not. Same concept, right?
Well, just real quick, I want to let you know that I'm actually AI. This is
I'm not surprised. I would not be
I'm
surprised.
I'm eating dinner in the other
I
room.
would love it. If you told me that right now, it would just further my worldview as it exists right now. So don't forget, I'm like a jillion years older than you too, man. So I think that the interesting aspect of that is that you want to have high fidelity and you really do need to cut down on anonymity, but not anonymity to you, anonymity to what something is doing, right? So if you have avatars at high fidelity of the what without the who, meaning that that if it's a shopping profile, that it's a male and they're approximately this age. And more importantly, they have a credit card that allows them to pay. They're allowed to be attached to this credit card to pay for that. You don't really need to know us, Tim Arthur, right?
Right.
Now take that and extrapolate that across everything, medical records, all these other different types of things. Now chain your base control to those agents and to those avatars. So maybe human versions are avatars and agents are AI, right? Every one
Yeah.
of them is some kind of version of you, some kind of simulacrum of you, right? No matter what it is, if you spawned agents at some point in time, and even if something you spawns agents, they're still your downline, right? No matter what, you still own them, and liability is going to be an interesting thing at some point in time. Count on that. Legal
Yeah.
liability is going to be a very interesting thing about that. I didn't mean to do that.
Accountability.
Yeah, but you set that bitch loose, and then it did that and that and that. It's going to happen.
Yeah.
So
Right.
if you can do that, then I can start really dialing down on all this fraud, pedophile stuff. I can start dialing down on these different types of things because I can abstract the who from the what. And if I do that, I can ground that who in a deep cryptographic level at instantiation, at Genesis, whoever it is, right? Always on personal protected network, whatever you want to call it, micro VPN. I heard someone say. I mean, I don't really care what you call it, but it's the way you interface. It's not. I use this again. It's not a tool. It's just you. It's how you. It's your supplicant into the world. It's your interface there. And if you can get to that level, everything else becomes hierarchical pub sub. Everything. This
Yeah.
conversation is hierarchical pub sub.
Explain that one.
Okay. So when you're talking about really ultimately, the only thing you need for hierarchical pub sub to really take over from APIs, DLLs, all this other stuff, right, is some type of very fast profile match aspect. Okay. You need some way to know what's good, what's bad, what it wants to do, what it's expected to do. This same thing you were just talking about when you're constructing an agent, right? You need that manifest. You need to understand how you control that guy, what he's going to do, and all this other stuff. All of that comes down to schema and sub schema under some really basic levels of that we worked in forever. You could even take something like, I don't know, CIA triangle, add cost and resources as the fourth and fifth leg to something like that, right? And now it's a pyramid. And if you did all of that in the sub schema of confidentiality, integrity, availability, cost, and resources, right? Which is one really time, cost and time, whatever you want to call it, right?
Sure.
You can start creating very, very, very granular all the way down. You take something like the NEEM data model with the local and the global aspect, right? And you have your local data models that then feed the globals, and you control the aspect of that. Now you're in a situation where these profiles can generate very, very quick flash type situations amongst all these things without having to wait for someone to go construct a DLL or an API, whether it's AI or otherwise. Everything, look up like hierarchical or pub sub operating systems. They keep kind of trying at it. That's what the AIOS is going to be. It's going to be a pub sub operating system. And this conversation is pub sub. I'm publishing, you're subscribing. You're publishing, I'm subscribing. I talk too much, so I'm publishing too much. But so it's like we
No, you're great.
already had this profile up.
Yeah.
So if you start thinking about it that way, it's very interesting.
So it is interesting. And on that line of you publishing, me subscribing, one of the new technologies that I'm really concerned about is they have these AI pendants. The AI glasses are coming out that are, when I'm just looking at somebody in public or with a pendant, it's always just listening to everybody, right? How do we protect that? Like, what's the sassy layer of the AI pendant?
So I think maybe it's what I was alluding to before. What we have right now is an analog and a digital world. Okay. When you're looking again, remember it's taking analog. Your eyes are seeing someone. That's analog, right? The glasses you have on then convert that to digital. Okay. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, right.
The only way you really ultimately, and I don't know how long this takes to get there. I'm not positive you can. And there's a lot of take back you got to do in this situation. Okay. Because everybody's put their damn life out there on the internet for the most part. Right. But ultimately, if when it registered that person you're looking at, right, the stopping point was this is Avatar 003 of Root of Trust 006, you begin to be able to control what someone sees and how they'll put it back to you. You see what I'm saying?
What's the signature though? What's my signature in that scenario?
What do you mean with your signature help?
Like in an AI pendant glasses world, when it sees me and it's converting my analog into digital,
Mhm.
how does it know it's me?
So two things. One is they're embedding some of that stuff if it's AI generated or not. You saw that, and I saw another aspect. NVIDIA's doing that, and someone else is doing that for content creation, right? Not allowing you kind of like watermarking it. A digital watermark is a personal trademark, I think, is what you ultimately end up with there. But how you actually
Okay.
enforce a personal trademark legally is a whole different level, right? You kind of have some of that in Europe now, but it's like it's not easy. But what I'm saying is the next generation of that, though, if when someone is processing your signature, they're not processing your signature. They're processing an avatar signature. You're behind the wall. You're behind the avatar wall. You're behind these avatars. They are what you allow the world to see of you. So you may have just a picture avatar. But they never get back to your social security number, which is the dumbest identifier ever, by the way, and the most intransient. It's just
Yeah.
not smart, right? So look, dude, I'm talking out there. This is going to have to change, but you're going to end up with a situation where when I break a link between an avatar and myself, I can break or not break a linkage and breakage there. That data is mine. If that data is mine, when I break basically the concept of global DRM or whatever you want to, your personal DRM, that data becomes trash. And now I control my data.
So it's almost like I need something on me that is watermarking me,
Yep.
right?
Yeah, so
Doesn't
we've
that
talked
make
about that. It's
sense?
called like Digital Guardian, and I've talked about that for a long time. But it's not as easy to do, but there is some ways to do it. So this is way back. I was talking about how pictures are a problem, right? People snapping pictures and stuff like that, right? You know me, and this is way before AI. I need to go back through this with AI now. You know how they blot out cameras, IR cameras, flash the infrared and make the camera. You know what they do with security cameras? I think they shine the infrared light in it. That's what it is, shatter and scatter. There's two things. There's one thing that you can do that with sound waves, and I can't really talk about that because it was talked to me about by a friend of mine who I swear he swears by this. It was in like the 80s and 90s when he was doing this stuff. And it's one of those three layers, but he said there's this thing that you can actually shatter sound waves. But it's the same concept, right? It's when you take a picture, and if you do it with a flash, I definitely can. You can use like there's certain types of makeup you can use, but there's also I was saying you could have jewelry, and when that light hits it, it creates this halo effect. You can't see through it.
Yeah.
So those are physical ways to do that. Digital ways, I think you're right. I think you're onto something. I think that what you would do is you would carry your personal trademark, and your personal trademark would have to inject something into the stream, the analog stream, right?
Mhm.
You would basically kind of create a steganography of yourself, personal steganography. That's crazy looking.
That's wild.
That is crazy.
You put me down a rabbit hole.
I was just thinking about that myself because I was talking about that
That's
crypto thing. So
that's my weekend
I
project
know.
right there.
I was just looking at because I was just talking to some guys, and these guys are brilliant too. But so they have this tiny, tiny crypto module that they're working on, and they know they works because we were talking about for OT. But I was like, well, it doesn't have to be OT; it could be everything. So but it's post quantum. It's quantum resistant, right? And it's so fast, it's crazy. And so if you think about it, if everything you interface with in the world digitally, right? And actually tell you the truth, really physically now, you're not often, I mean, cash is kind of still out there, but you don't use it that much anyway. But if everything was based off of that root of trust, here's the other thing. And you might not have to, I think the physical thing is good, but in a world like that, where you're really talking about personal DRM, I believe, I got to think about that. I believe I could actually probably warp that because what I could do is basically I could effectively say, I didn't approve this. I only approved this. And everywhere that I was, that avatar is what I'm talking about. Everywhere that avatar was, if it was a picture I didn't approve, I could have all the pictures flash up that are of me, right? For over the last 10 years that are now on there. And I'm like, I didn't approve that. I didn't approve that. I didn't approve that. Go through and these are the only pictures I've ever approved. And boom, all of a sudden now they poof, shatter
Yep.
and scatter.
Yeah. That needs to happen. That has to happen.
I mean, somewhere you have to take back control of your life, man. I mean,
Yeah,
and your life ultimately, when I say that, it's your data.
it is.
If you don't have control of your data, do you have control of your life?
Everything I've said is my data.
It's yours. Shouldn't be anybody else's. Just because they put some kind of license thing in here or whatever, that's still your voice. It ain't theirs. And also that's
Yeah.
going to come down to personal trademark. That's going to come down. That's going to be when you recapture your data. Like I said, thing I was working on for that, I call it Sojourner's algorithm. It's like travelers, a transient route, a route of trust that can be transient. Personal DRM, personal trademark. I mean, those kind of things, which, again, that's the problem we talked about earlier. What always drags at the end? The legal system. And that's
Right.
where a lot of that has it. So what I'm saying is you solve the legal problem. You solve the problem before it becomes a legal problem. Because if you don't, it'll be court forever, right? So you really just want to take it out here, and you want to take the low tech, the no tech, low tech, and high tech solution to these issues. One is the avatar element. And again, I can go through that, but we could talk about that concept. I think there's ultimately how you do that. It's the concept of two one-way hashes type situation. I think if you look at oasis.net, there's a crypto project out there. It's the Rose token. I think they've done some of that, but there's also something called bailed certificates, which I was part of back in 2007, 8. Kind of had the same concept, which is two one-way hashes, high fidelity of what something is or what someone is, but never getting back to the who. It was really done originally when we were doing it for the health exchanges.
Well, that's fascinating, man, and like this entire conversation has
Oh
been
man, that's a
fascinating.
pleasure, dude. Always, I appreciate you.
All right, David O'Barry, thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Arthur.
I appreciate your time, and I will talk to you next time.
Take care, brother.